The first thing we're going to do is go into the gizmo tool and squish this sideways a little bit, and let's move it out on this plane into the front view. I'm going to click on the paintbrush and I'm going to paint my sphere a pumpkin orange. Now let's open the scene menu, and to get the pumpkin shape, we're going to click add, and we're going to add a radial repeater, and let's change that radial repeater up to about 10. Let's click back on the sphere and let's go back into the gizmo tool, and we're going to elongate that sphere just a little bit and take the move tool, and we can push in the top and bottom of the pumpkin. I want this seam line to be a little bit more defined, so I'm going to take the crease tool and I'm going to crease along that seam to better define it. Now I'll click on the radial repeater and we are going to validate that shape and join the children. Let's use the brush tool with the sub button enabled. Let's use a smaller brush radius with a lower intensity, and I'm going to use this to find the general area for the eye socket. It looks very boxy. I'm going to go into my voxel menu and I'm going to turn up the resolution, and I'm going to voxel remesh this, and then I will smooth out that area. I'm going to take the clay tool and a smaller brush, and I'm going to find where the eyebrow ridge is going to go. I'll also go ahead and find a little bit of the structure underneath the eye. Let's click scene menu, click add, and let's add in a sphere for the eye. We're gonna move that out and over and scale it down. And let's click the paintbrush, click the color, and let's paint this straight black and completely glossy for the eye. We need it on both sides. Let's click on tube to get our edit menu to show back up, and let's click mirror. Let's make the eyes much smaller, and let's bring them up a little bit more. In fact, at this point, I want the whole pumpkin to be longer, so I'm going to extend it this way before I continue and use the move tool to move the eyebrows up a little bit. I'm going to move the eyebrows down right here to make them a little more menacing, and I'll add a little more material down here to build up the eye on the bottom. I'm going to take the crease tool and crease the eye right here into a point. And now for the nose and mouth structure, I'm going to take the crease tool with the sub button enabled. I'm going to start at the nose ridge and I'm going to draw in the mouth shape. Now I'm going to use the clay tool with the sub button enabled, and I am going to eat away some of this mouth so that I can kind of hollow it out. Now the inside has very bad geometry, so I'm going to go back into my voxel menu and voxel remesh it again so that we can clean that up. For the teeth, I'm going to use a tube tool with the path option and lay out a path and click the green dot to get it to show up. I'll click radius at the top until 3 dots show so that we can change the radius at every point on our tooth. I'm going to change the color into a brown wood-like color. And now I'll just move these points around and play with the radius to get it into the shape that I want it to be. I'll click mirror to get it to show up on both sides. And now I'll use the clone function on the gizmo tool, and I'm going to move that over to make it clone. I'll make these a little bit shorter, and then I'll press clone and make one more, but I'm going to take this one out of symmetry, so I'll open my scene menu and take it out of that mirror repeater so that it's just one tooth. And I'll spend just a little more time cloning just a few more teeth using this exact same method. I want to make sure that I add a good bit of variability in this and that I make some come far back into the mouth this way. Before I continue, I'm going to go into my main object and select my inflate tool, and I'm going to create some gums by inflating around the teeth. Off to the sides, I'm going to move the mouth back a little bit to find those teeth in the back corner, and I'm going to crease to wrap around those teeth a little, and then I'll go and I'll inflate around them as well. I'll inflate down here on the edge of the lip, and I think I want to use the move tool to drag this out and redefine it just a little. I'm going to pull it out this way just a little. And now using the tube tool with the path option, I'm going to go ahead and make these bottom teeth as well. Now for the tongue, I'm going to use the path option and I'm going to lay that path in here. I'm going to change the radius into a general tongue shape and make sure that I take that out of any mirror if it is in one. Instead of this being a round cylinder, I'm going to turn on my profile and edit that profile from a square into a rectangle. And I'm going to click the dots to let these round so that the edges of the tongue are rounded. And now I'll add a dot right here so that it's bent in the middle of the tongue. And I'll add a dot on each side so that there's a sharp divot right in the middle of the tongue. I'll use this preset for later. So I'm going to go into my preset menu and I'm going to add that into my folder. Now we can move these points around and position the tongue how we want. I'm going to go back into my inflate tool and now I'm going to build up some of the material around the teeth. I want it to be more menacing, so I'm going to raise the mouth right here and I'm going to reposition the teeth. Geometry is pretty broken, so before I continue, I will go back into my voxel menu yet again and voxel remesh it so that we can clean the geometry. I'm going to take the smooth tool now and I'm going to smooth up some of these shapes before I continue on them, using a small intensity for some of these so that I don't overdo it. Now that they are clean, I'm going to use the crease tool and I'm going to crease in some of these details so that we can better define them. I'll separate the eyebrows from the nose a little bit right here. I'm going to crease in between the teeth to try to get it to pull into each tooth. I'll crease underneath the eye a little. I'm going to take the drag tool, go into my tool settings, into the fall off, and I'm going to change it from this rounded bump into more of a point like this. And then I'm going to pull the eyebrow out just a little into a point. I'm going to smooth around this so that we can bring it into a better bend. And then using the inflate tool, I'm going to go and redefine that eyelid. I'm going to drag out the bottom eyelid a little bit and reposition the top one. I don't like how this ended up. We're just going to smooth this out and we're going to make a new one that's in a better position. Again, I'll use the inflate tool to do that and the move tool to angle them. I want the side of the mouth more rounded, so I'm going to take the move tool and I'm going to drag it out this way. I'm going to fix around the teeth with the inflate tool just a little. Now I want to give this pumpkin horns. To do that, I'm going to go into my scene menu, click add, and I'm going to add a sphere. I will use the gizmo tool to move that up, and I'm going to click add, and I'm going to add that into a curve repeater. I'll click on my sphere and I'm going to scale that way down so that it's a lot smaller. I'll move it into the position where I'll put one horn. And then I'm going to click on my curve repeater, click on tube so that I can open my edit menu at the top. And I'm going to add about 10 of these into my curve repeater. Actually, let's move that up to about 20. Now I'm going to put dots on this and I'm going to move this into the position that I want the horns to be. Now I'll click radius at the top here until 3 dots show so that I can change the radius at every point to get it more into a horn-like shape. You can see that I'm going to have to add a lot more spheres, so I'm going to go back into my curve tool and I'll just up that count. Now I can click on an individual sphere and I can go into the tube function to get this menu to show up and validate my shape. And now I can actually sculpt on it. I'm going to take the crease tool with the sub button enabled. And before I continue, actually, I'm going to go into my scene menu and I'm going to take this curve and I'm going to put it inside of a mirror repeater so that it shows up on both sides. Now that it's mirrored, I will use the crease tool and I'm going to find some of these shapes that I want on this object. And I don't really know what I want. I'm just going to kind of play around until it does things that I like. I like that, for example. I'll probably do one on this side down here. I think maybe I'll square this up right in here. Maybe I'll take the drag tool and pull this side out a little bit like that. I think I'll leave the shape like that. I'm going to go into my scene menu, click on the curve, click on gizmo, and I'm just going to reposition it this way a little bit, tilt it backwards. And now I'll click on my pumpkin object and I'm going to use the inflate tool again and build up around the horns so that we can add some material in there. And I just want to make it look like it's built into the pumpkin itself. I need a stem in the center, so I'm going to use a tube tool with a path option and just lay out a single stem. I'll paint it the same color. And I'm going to just spend a little bit of time using the radius to change this and just make it look a little more appropriate. Once I have it where I want, I'm gonna validate it and voxel remesh it right away so that I can go in with the clay tool with the sub button, and I'm gonna start just making some streaks on this so that it can add some texture to the model. I'll also go in and add material as well for the same effect. I want to make the nose more obvious, so I'm gonna click the drag tool and drag this up a little bit, and then I'll also widen it out. I'm gonna bring it out this way in the front just a little, and I'll click the clay tool with the sub button enabled to get some hollow space in the nose. I think I want these teeth to stand out just a little bit more. And now I need to start redefining around the eye a little bit again. I'm going to do that with the crease tool just to bring out these shapes and really exaggerate them and try to understand what looks off and how to fix it. Now that we're at this point, I want to redefine the pumpkin shape because we lost a lot of that. With the crease tool, I'm going to make a crease right down the center to try to make pumpkin shapes come back. And I'll do that over the sides as well. And then I think what I'll do to really make this work is I'm going to take the inflate tool with a very large brush radius and a smaller intensity, and then I'll go over the sides and try to puff those out a little bit. I think that will help make it look a lot more like a pumpkin. I'm gonna continue on the eyes just a little bit. It still feels very off. It just looks very pig-like, and I don't like that, and we're gonna change it. A lot of that has to do with the nose. So I'm gonna smooth that out, and maybe I'll try to find something a little bit better, even if that's no nose at all. Maybe dropping the lips down just a little bit is also going to help, and pulling the lips in on the side just a little bit. I think I want the eyes to be a little bit bigger, so I'm gonna drag this in and basically just open up the area where the eyes are shown and go in and scale them up just a little and reposition them. I think that's going to be it for this sculpt. Thank you for watching.